It happened on the way to the concert. In the fall of 2010, Danny Jones and I met to talk about cover stories and feature stories for 2011. And Danny had a great idea. He said, what if we got a lot of the artists together and maybe talked about the road stories that they've experienced throughout their years of travel? But let's bring in video cameras and audio and we'll record the day. That's exactly what we did. So on this Tuesday, January 25th, 2011, at Paul Wharton's studio in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. So sit back and enjoy 402 years of road stories from some of your favorites in Southern gospel music. It happened on the way to the concert. The first duo to sit down and reminisce that day was Les Beasley and Tim Lovelace. Of course, Les Beasley traveled with his quartet, the Florida Boys, for over 60 years, so you know he had lots of stories. But you get Les and Tim together, well, let's just listen in.
Well, it's great to be here with Brother Les. I traveled with him 9 years with the Florida Boys, and they've told me it seemed like 50, but 9 years, a lot of different things, and I was thinking about one time my dad, Harold Lovelace, went with us on a trip to Louisiana, and my dad is he's different, and that's why I'm his son. You know, every family's dysfunctional. Get over it. But anyway, my dad, he's a very intelligent man, but he figures everything out, and so he can tell you what the rain precipitation is in Romania right now. But he said that there's one place to get rice in Louisiana, and it's fairly close to where we're going to have the concert that night. So he talked Les into walking, because the bus was parked, to go and get this special rice in Louisiana. So they walked, I don't know how long, what would you say, Les?
About a half a mile.
Half a mile that seemed like 3, and they bought like a 50-pound bag, huge, and walked back with the rice, both of them. Carried
I thought
rice
I had
back.
me a good deal.
Yeah, but Les wanted it because it was a good deal. And so they carried those. They didn't think about going there and getting the rice, but they had to carry it back and then hauled it back. And then Les informed me the next week that he found out that the rice up at either Walmart or Sam's was a few cents cheaper per pound.
Well, I brought it home to my wife, and I told her how much I'd paid for it, and she said, I've got some just like that. And I said, well, where? She showed it to me. It was the very same rice. But I think one of the best stories that I know about Tim was that we were in Wisconsin, and it was 25 below zero, and we had a bus breakdown, and I thought the fuel filters were frozen, and so I took them off in that sub-zero weather, and he and Buddy Lyles went to get some diesel.
There were 3 in the group that would not get off the bus. It was
no,
the wind was blowing, and so
Glenn and Daryl and Greg Cook, they went to bed, which is normal, but these 2 were helping me, and they went to get some diesel, and on the highway patrolman stopped and saw him, and he said...
well, he was actually there where we got the diesel, and he pulled up, so we were happy, because our feet were frozen, because we'd walk there. So we thought, well, good, we'll get a ride back.
Yeah, well, he let Buddy ride, but now I want you to mimic the...
Well, I was so happy. We were in Wisconsin. I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but we all have our own accents. But as I started to get in the back with that car, because we were literally frozen. It's the coldest I've ever been. Even though we've been in colder weather, we had just been outside so long. And so the officer said, told Buddy, he said, now you can get in the front of the cruiser. But he said, I do not want you with that diesel to get in here. You may spill some of that. So he said, young man, you're going to have to walk back. So Buddy took the hot chocolate and drove off in the warm cruiser. And I could almost see the lights of the bus way down the interstate. And I walked back. And then Les got it going. Your hands were shaking really bad, but you got it going while everybody else was sleeping, and you got it going.
He had on a ski mask and a blanket around him. And that's the way he went to bed after I got the bus started.
It was because the bus was already, it was freezing inside.
He kept the ski mask on, and then it got to be about 80 degrees on the bus. He woke up.
And somewhere between Wisconsin and Nashville, I woke up, and all I remember, my body temperature was probably 160. And all I know is I woke up right as I was about to take my last breath on life. I woke up and I went, and that was about it.
We were on our way to Nashville to have some pictures made.
We're actually coming here to
right
Paul.
here at Paul Watkins, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I woke him up because we was going to run late. We would get in here about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I said, we're going to fuel, we'll eat, and then we go to Nashville. I woke Tim up, and he said, no, I don't believe I'll have anything to eat. I'm not hungry. He doesn't remember that at all. So he is really mad when we get here.
Well, I was not too happy because I didn't remember saying that at all. All I know is when we got here, my face was frozen, although my body was hot, and so that cover story with the Florida Boys has everybody with a relaxed smile, and I'm going.
Yeah.
Well, you know, all of our bus, I think, all of the drivers and everyone, I think we were all a little challenged when it came to directions. I didn't drive, but I couldn't read a map. You know, I'm from Alabama with Alabama grammar. We all tried to help each other out. It's kind of pre-cell phone, really, and I guess one of my favorite ones was down in Dallas when we had to be over there for sound check, and we left, and what happened then?
Well, we drove the entire radius of Dallas, and Glenn said, well, there it is, and right across the interstate is where we had stayed. We had just gone, and
we drove for an hour.
wonder who was driving. It was our piano player, Brother Darrell Stewart. He's not good at directions.
Well, it was an hour and a half jaunt, and when we got there, the motel was directly across the street from the church. So yeah, it was a successful run. That was one of our better ones, but anyway. Yeah.
Next in the hot seat with Les Beasley was Legacy 5's Scott Howard.
Les probably won't even remember this, but it's one of the best. It's one of the best memories that I've got. We were at Nashville Quartet Convention, and I'm not sure what year it was. It was right after the group had kind of reformed. Josh and Alan and all the kids had come in there. You had quit singing and started just playing bass. I'd come into the arena there to hear you guys that night, and it was an a cappella song you guys sang, and just, I mean, absolutely brought the house down. It was just unbelievable, and a lot of y'all remember that.
Looked like I would remember that.
Well, it may not have been quite as good from where you were standing, from where I was. But anyway, after you guys had finished, y'all were coming off stage, and I came down there and met you in the hallway. You were coming out. I said, Les, man, you guys were absolutely phenomenal. And Les says, you didn't know we were that good, did you? I said, well, no, I guess I didn't. He said, all I had to do was quit. So he looked at me, he said, have you considered quitting?
Is that a true story?
That is the truth. I said, well, I hadn't considered it until now, but you may be onto something there. So that's my favorite Les story that I've got right there.
Next to sit down with Les Beasley was his old friend, Aaron Wilburn.
I guess you know what I'm going to talk about here. I want you to tell the story, but
I don't remember you being that tall.
I wasn't till they brought this stool in. When I came with the Goodmans, I was green as grass.
That's true.
I didn't need an agreement. I just wanted to make a point.
Okay, all right.
But I was scared of everything, and of course when I came to the Gospel Singing Jubilee, I was just scared to death. And Les had this manner. He and Sam Goodman could scare me to death just by looking at me. And I'd be thinking, have I done something wrong? Am I doing something wrong? But anyway, the whole big deal on this is that Les has a daughter named Elaine. And Elaine and I had met at one of the concerts. We were writing back and forth. And so every few days I'd write her a letter, she'd write me a letter. So we're on the Gospel Singing Jubilee. And I don't know it, but Les has set it up with the camera guys. And I'm waiting for the red light to come on. And I know when the red light is on, I'm going to sing. Les is introducing me. Les, take it from there.
Well, I said, are you the one that's been writing to my daughter? Something like that. Maybe you ought to tell it. That was a long time ago. I'm an old man. I can't
Well, I can, believe me, I still remember it well.
You go ahead and tell it.
It still scares me to sit by you here. But but as the light comes on, Les Beasley says, this is Aaron Wilburn, and by the way, have you been writing my daughter? And I turned red. And he said, I know you have. He said, I've read some of the letters. And he said, I don't appreciate some of the things you've said. I am just scared to death, and I'm shaking at this time. And I'm thinking, this is going out live to America. And it scared the daylights out of me. And then later, Les started laughing. And he had set it up with the camera guys for the red light to come on. They weren't taping, but I thought they were. But anyway, that was the scare of my life.
I've got to tell you, you were going out over the airwaves.
I was.
The red light was on, and we didn't do any editing in those days. It's what made you what you are today.
That's the reason I didn't reach any farther, I guess.
You know Gordon Mote from his many years of travels with the Homecoming Tour, and of course he's one of the most awarded piano players in the history of not only gospel music, but country music. And of course, Tracy Stuffle is the bass vocalist and manager for one of the most popular family groups in Southern gospel music today, the Perrys.
Well, hey, here's my buddy Gordon Mote. I got a great Gordon story. Gordon, you probably won't even remember this, but it was one of the first sessions that we ever had you on one of our recordings. I can't even remember the album it was on, but we'd never been around Gordon, and was kind of, I think it was Remembering the Happy Goodmans maybe album. Anyway,
maybe
it was. We were recording at the studio and knew of Gordon, but hadn't been around and really didn't know what to say to him and so it was after the lunch break, and I think our publicist came in. She was going to take a photo with all the musicians, to go in, sing the news and send it out publicity that Perry's are in the recording studio, and so. Me and you kind of struck up a little conversation.
Well, we're both big Braves fans,
yeah,
so we're probably talking about the Braves.
And then I found out, Wagonmaster here, big Porter Wagoner fan, and we kind of hit it off. And I was sitting there thinking, Gordon, man, he's really cool, And so we were side by side in the picture, and not really knowing his character yet, just feeling things out and not wanting to say the wrong things or anything.
Sure.
Gordon, just as seriously could. Libby's on the other side, and the producers and the engineer, everybody's good. Gordon leans right into me, goes, Libby don't like me. And I went, what, Libby don't like you? And you said, yeah, Libby don't like me. And I said, what made you say that? He said, I can tell by the way she's staring at me. She don't like me. To this day, I remember that, man. Oh, I crack up. That's great.
I used to play tricks. I used to play tricks on interns at the studios because interns are so scared. You from being in the studio. You have different interns that bring coffee or whatever. He'll do something for the engineers. And when I first started playing on the bigger records, I really had a sense of, I mean, I still have a sense of humor, but I took it a little too far sometimes because with these poor interns, you know, from Belmont or MTSU or whatever, they'd come into the studio and do anything they could to help you. And so I knew where all the steps were. I knew where everything was. And one of my favorite intern jokes would be to get right where the steps are. And he, you know, they're guiding me back out to the piano, and they don't know, you know, that I know. And I get right to the stair and fall, and get up and look right at them with the serious. I can't believe you just did that. Your career is over. This is and man, they'd be so scared, and I'd let them go for about 10 seconds. I go, I'm just kidding. And they were my friend forever, you know. I love playing tricks. Bill, funny story about, there's a lot of funny things that happened on the Gaither tour. And when I first went out with them, we were in Maine, and I'd known Bill for several years just playing for him in the studios and stuff, but traveling with somebody is a whole different ball game. And, you know, because you're with each other all the time. And so they were getting used to me, and I was getting used to them. And so it's a bunch of us, the vocal band and me and Kevin, and a bunch of us went to eat at this really good seafood place in Maine, right on the water. And we go there, we have a wonderful meal. We spend an hour and a half in there just eating, having a good time. And Bill gets the check, and we all thank him for that. And then they get up and leave. They all leave. And I have my cell phone, so I'm thinking this is pretty funny. But they don't come back for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And by this time, the waitress has come by and said, "Can I get you anything else to drink?" "No, I'm good." And I'm just kind of sitting there waiting. And so finally, Bill walks in with Kevin, and Bill is like, he doesn't know what, let's go. So they leave me at this restaurant for like 10 or 15 minutes. That really happened, and he still doesn't like to bring that up. I think it's funny. And this happened in the Caribbean. I mean, gosh, I have so many funny stories about the road. We all play tricks on each other, and I forget that I shouldn't play tricks on them because they can get me back a lot easier. But we were in the Caribbean, and we were all eating, me and Rory and Kevin and several other of the artists. And I was just, you know, having a glass of water with a lemon or a lime or whatever. We're all eating, and without me knowing it, everybody at the table had put their limes in my water. And so I pick up my glass, and I get, all these limes in my nose. So the rest of the time, my joke was, "Man, this Jamaica smells like lime." It was a lot of funny stuff.
Do you remember a couple of sessions ago, actually, and this one I found out you were a big Braves fan, and we were talking about the Braves, and they had like a day game, like a 1 o'clock Wednesday game or something, and we were in the studio. And Gordon's computer, he has it, man, where he don't miss a Braves game, do you?
No.
You know, he knows all the stats, who's batting averages, what. And so it's after one song, and I go in the room there where he's at, and I said, "Man, Gordon, it's going great. You said, "No, we're down a run. We're down." He was catching the ball game in between each song. You were getting it all updated.
I have listened to Alabama football in my ear monitors on the Gaither stage before. That's no joke.
Tim is back to reminisce with Southern Gospel Hall of Famer and matriarch of America's first family of Southern gospel music, Connie Hopper of the Hoppers.
But I want to tell something about Connie that a lot of people don't know. A lot of people know she plays basketball, but when we were first doing the cruises 25 years ago or more, whatever, and Mike and Dean all in their 20s and everything, and we were all
They
fairly,
were actually younger than that.
we were, yeah, okay. So anyway, we were young, but there was a tradition on the last day of the cruise, we would throw people into the pool. And we would go around, it was just fun, and people would get thrown in. And Mike and Dean and Greg Fox and all, they said, "We can never catch Connie." And so they said to please try to help. And the guys, her boys, assured me, said, "Oh, she's a good sport. We just can't catch her." So that particular cruise, I thought, well, we're going to do it. So we got our plan up, and we waited till she was not paying attention, out talking with people. and us young guys all took out after Connie. And you have never seen running like that in your life. She went down through the halls, we split up, and there's different ways, and all of a sudden, when she stretched those legs out, she was gone. But what really tickled me is we stopped at one intersection, and we're all like, us guys going, where did Connie go? And there's two little ladies standing there, and one of them, they had like little white hair and real rich little southern accents, and one of them said, well, who was that lady that just ran by here? And the other one said, well, I don't know, but I declare she was a spitting image of Connie Hopper. But we never did. We never did catch her. And so Claude, to catch her, he had to be on a Harley or something. He didn't catch you on foot. But
Hey, I saw the girls you did throw in the pool with their makeup and their singing clothes, and
I was innocent of that.
you were innocent. And
That was your son.
I said, that'll never happen to me. So I ran.
Here's 100 years worth of road stories from our friends Ed O'Neill and Connie Hopper.
Claude and Connie Hopper are probably two of my best friends in gospel music, have been for a long time. We started almost about the same time in the business. And of course, Claude had cows, you know, he raised on the farm. He had a bus breakdown, he got it fixed like that. And I had to negotiate a long time, you know, to get back to it. But I wrote a song back in '71. We owned a Christian bookstore in our hometown. And I was sitting there one day, nobody in the store, it was raining outside, and the phone wasn't ringing. I was just writing on a notepad some things. And lo and behold, I looked down and had two lines that rhymed. That thrilled me to death. I thought to myself, man, you might be another Bill Gaither coming on, you know. So I kept on writing. By lunch, I had the words to my first song. I went to lunch and came back, hummed all afternoon. 5 o'clock I had it. Couldn't hardly wait to get home to sing it to my wife, Joy. I walked in the back door, she was fixing dinner. I said, honey, put everything aside. I've written a song today and you got to hear it. Now, she's 5'2". I'm 6'5". She looked up real sweet and I looked down and I sang him a song. She smiled. She said, well, that was pretty. Wash your hands. Supper be ready in a minute. You know? She wasn't excited, you know. And I said, well, now, she don't see us sing. She don't know a lot about the business. I'm not going to let that be a problem. But when the boys meet tomorrow night to leave to go out of town, before we start, I'm going to sing them my song, and they know what good songs are. So they came to the bus the next night, sat down. I said, boys, before we start the bus, I want to sing you a song. I wrote it this week, and I'm excited. And boy, I put something on that song. I sang it the best I believe it's ever been sang, and they didn't like it either. And I said, well, I just must be overly excited. So I forgot it, didn't want to have a problem. 2 years go by, one day I was having lunch with Claude. Told him that story. He said, Ed, let me have that song. Put it in my publishing company. When groups get ready to record, I send out a tape a lot of times of our music. Maybe somebody will hear it and like it, maybe record it. I said, well, it won't hurt. I gave him the song. 2 more years, not a word. Here's where the truth is. Claude Hopper called me one morning at 1:30 in the morning. And I answered the phone. He said, buddy, were you asleep? I said, yes, sir. What's happening? He said, well, and then another thing. 1:30 in the morning for Claude back then was Claude, you know, because everything was cheaper after midnight back then. He said, were you asleep? Yeah, I was asleep. He said, when I tell you what's happening, you're not going to go back to sleep. I said, what's that? He said, the Inspirations from Bryson City just recorded your song. I thought a minute, Inspirations and the Happy Goodman found the biggest thing happening in the business, and when I'm recording my song, yeah, I jumped out of that bed. I was just shouting all over that bedroom. My wife got so concerned. She said, Ed, settle down. You're going to have a stroke. She still wasn't excited. But about a year later, we got a report in that the Inspirations had sold, I don't know, more thousands than I can even remember of that LP with my song on it. And I told my wife about it, and guess who got excited then? She's been excited ever since. But that's one of Claude's deal. Claude's a good guy.
That's a great song. And actually, the 1:30 calling, that was a normal thing because Claude was, he never went to sleep. He would sit up all night with things running through his head, writing down ideas. And he used to get up and stop the clock. It was in the other end of the house because he couldn't sleep, and he'd hear that clock ticking, and he'd go in there and stop it. But that was just a normal time of the night for him.
Let me tell one more thing on Claude. Go ahead. We used to sing in Clinton, North Carolina together, the Hoppers and the Dixie Metal Boys, every year. And most of the time I had to have 2 auditoriums because the people just love what we done. And I called Claude. I said, what time are you going to get to Clinton? He said, whatever. I said, well, come early and bring your golf clubs and we'll play golf before we sing. He said, okay, that's a good idea. So Dean and Mike, Mike wasn't traveling then. Dean was so young, he just came, he wasn't playing golf. But called club, and when he got the clubs to the golf course, he started pulling his shoes out. That little old bag was wore out. I don't know how old it was. And one of them shoes had been put in there and jammed in there, and the toes of it was like that, and he couldn't get his foot in. And then he hopped all day on that shoe. And he kept on digging in there for everything else. Every time he'd go in for a golf ball, hay would fall out of it. I said, Claude, when's the last time you used these golf clubs? He said, I have no idea. Well, we had a great time. I've always had a reputation with the other groups that have never been to Canada that I can get across the border easier than anybody else, which is not true. I'm just like they are. But I've never had a lot of problems getting across the border. Because I don't say anything. They ask me a question, I say yes or no. I mean, I don't volunteer anything. And that way you don't have a lot of conversation. But there's a border up above Minot, North Dakota, that I like to go through because there's a church about 12 miles away, a nice-sized church we used to work all the time. And most of the people who are at the border go to that church. So I choose that border. So I was going to Red Deer, I think the first year they had it. And a little girl in there, she says, Mr. O'Neill, you can broker your own merchandise now. I said, well, really? I said, yeah. She said, all you got to do is fill this form out. And of course I'm old, and I'm looking old, and I said, ma'am, if I tried to fill that form out, you'd be here all day. And she said, well, I'll do it for you. So she asked questions and I filled it out. Got all paid my duties and stuff and got ready to go, and I said, ma'am, I'm not going to call the group, but I said, there's a group behind us. About 2 hours, watch them. That's all I said. So we got to Red Deer that night, and they want a program. 9 o'clock come, they wasn't there. 9:30, they wasn't there. 10 o'clock, they come in, they looked like they'd been in a fight. They were just wore out. So what's the matter, boys? You ought to have seen us. We ought to have never got across that border. They checked their battery compartments, everything. I said, man, that is bad. That's tough. They don't know that till today.
This next trio has literally traveled millions of miles singing Southern gospel music. Ed O'Neill, Aaron Wilburn, and Archie Watkins. And boy, do they have some bus stories.
Ed, when they called, when they emailed me about us doing this, I was so honored to get to be a part of it. Then when Danny called me and asked me if I had an old toolbox or an old fuel can, and I had an old hand truck that we used on our old bus, and they asked us if we knew any old bus stories, And I was thinking about something. First, I thought about Aaron Wilburn. First time I remember seeing you, Aaron, we sang in Huntsville, Alabama, at the racetrack.
Yeah.
And we were sitting on the bus, and that racetrack, we had a big circle, and the buses were parked in the middle, and the people were sitting in the grandstand. And we were sitting there, and we saw a big wrecker come in. And it circled the place, and it went over and backed up to a bus. It hooked up to that bus and jacked it up and came around the drag strip or the racetrack all the way around, pulling a big. Was it brown? Was the color brown or?
No, it was blue.
Blue. They pulled that bus all the way around.
And left
circled,
with it, didn't they?
And went out the gate.
Yeah.
With Aaron's bus.
That's right. What had happened?
Explain this.
Well, the Goodmans had asked me to go travel with them, and I had a manager, in Alabama, a little guy that decided he was going to manage me.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I had bought that bus from my high school. I paid about $700 for it. And so when my manager found out I was going with the Happy Goodman family, he got mad at me. Well, his best friend was the sheriff.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how they did it, but he managed to get my bus hauled off that night in front of that crowd. Of course, they had to give it to me back to me the next day.
Yeah.
But my manager got mad at me for leaving and going with the Happy Goodman family.
Yeah, he didn't like it.
So he had my bus hauled off from the racetrack that night.
You speaking of the Happy Goodman family, we were working in Nashville at War Memorial Auditorium, and the Goodmans and Inspiration, we parked our buses out on the street, and they parked theirs in the no parking zone. And and I said, you better not leave your bus there. They'll get it. And somebody else in the group told them, said, you better move your bus. They'll get it. No, they won't. We set up the sound and did a sound check, and somebody said, let's go eat. And we went somewhere there down the street to a restaurant, and we was all sitting in there around the tables, and looked up, and there come a big tow truck pulling the Goodman's bus. And Sam said, there goes our bus. They had to go get it. The police department took it in, pulled it off.
Phil Bauer called me and he says, will you sing bass with the old timers Hall of Fame? I said, sure. I said, who's going to be singing? He says, Les is going to be singing lead, Jerry Goff baritone, Archie going to sing the tenor. Well, your wife had a problem down there the night before and you couldn't be there.
She had a heart attack.
Yeah, and said, well, who are we going to get to sing tenor, man? And I said, well, Dwayne Nicholson with the Cougars is out in the hallway there at his table. Well, somebody said, he's not a Hall of Famer. I said, but he's a tenor singer.
Yeah.
It ain't not around.
Yeah.
So we decided to use him. And we got in there, and I had told Les, and they were going to sing that cert. I said, don't pitch it no lower than B, because I can't sing it.
Yeah.
He said, no problem. You know, his hands in his pocket, walking around like a little dictator. And
I got you mad over that convention, didn't I?
I hope we can audit this. Anyway, Bill Gaither was playing the piano. He came to the piano, and Les said, Bill, roll me out a B. He said, Les, I don't play in B. He said, well, give me a B flat. I said, Les, I can't sing B flat. He said, you will tonight. That was a good one.
He's talking about bus stories. We had a 4104, a 54 model, and this was.
Was it ever towed?
No.
Well, you ain't lived.
No, it was pushed a lot, but it wasn't towed. It was pushed a lot, but not towed. We were fixing to sign a recording contract with Canaan.
Yeah.
And this was in '71. And things were really happening. By being on the Gospel Singing Jubilee, I wanted to say that about Les before he left, but the greatest thing that ever happened to us was Les Beasley asking us to sing on the Gospel Singing Jubilee. That made us. And things were really happening good, and we ordered a 71 Eagle bus, brand new. And we sold that old 4104 bus to Mark Lowry. And we were coming home, and Martin got off the bus, I believe in maybe Nashville or somewhere. He was flying to Waco to meet Marvin Norcross and sign a recording contract. And we were going home, and our bass singer, Marlon Schubert at that time, was going to drive that old 4104 bus to Birmingham, Alabama, and meet Mark Lowry's parents, and they had bought the bus and they were getting the 4104. Well, we stopped in Chattanooga on Sunday morning early and got a rental truck. You know, every quartet member that's ever sung, if you're a real professional, you've rode in the back of a U-Haul or a Hertz or what, Rider or whatever. We rented a U-Haul truck. Eddie was doing the paperwork, you know, and they said, do you need insurance? Eddie said, no, we don't need any insurance. And we loaded all our everything out of that old bus in the back of that U-Haul truck, and Eddie was driving and Ronnie Hutchins rode in the front with him, and me and Jack and Troy got in the back, and we laid down on a mattress back there and raised that door up about 6 inches, and we was going to sleep on the way home while Eddie and Ronnie took care of the driving. We had all that product in there. If you ever gone through Cleveland, Tennessee, where that low overpass is, you know, and we was riding along, and Eddie was driving. I guess we was going 45 mile an hour, 50, and he hit that trestle. There's a sign there that says, low overhead, all this stuff. And when he hit it, it just peeled the top of it back about 4 feet, And Ronnie Hutchins says it just stopped right there, And Lord scared us to death. Jack said, "Oh Lord, I ain't gonna tell you what all he said." Said he's hit that trestle.
Testify.
And right then, the train started coming over. We was hung up on it. And old Ronnie says, "Eddie, rev it up and pop the clutch." and Eddie was stupid enough to try that. Well, we got out and we were, about half scared to death, and we was all walking around the truck, and there's an old man sitting up there at the filling station right there by the road, and he was leaned back in a straight chair like they used to do, lean back against the wall. I saw him, and I was, trying to figure out what we was going to do, how we was going to get that truck out of there. And in a minute, he got up and walked down there to us, and he said, we was just running around, that train had gone on, and he said, "Boys, you want me to tell you how to get that truck out of there?" I said, "Yes, sir, we really would like to know." He said, "Let the air out of the tires and you can drive it out." So we let the air out and drove it off. And went home and tried to explain to the truck people why we didn't have any insurance. Eddie prayed he's the one done it, he prayed all the way home, worried sick, about. That's just one of them
gospel music stories.
That's one of them stories about a bus. If you want to know how a group's doing, ask them how the bus is.
This next trio includes Scott Howard once again, Hall of Famer Archie Watkins, and promoter Jim Hefner.
Well, we've heard all kind of stories so far today.
I'm telling you.
And I've heard stories all of my life about all of the different groups that have sung to these big, huge crowds. I've never got to participate in any of that, but I've heard the stories. But what I thought would be interesting is to hear some stories of some dates you've had when you didn't have a big crowd.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys can come up with anything. I can certainly come up with something, but Jim,
those are majority with me.
Well, tell us one. Pick out a good one and let us hear it.
Years ago, we had this guy came to us, and he was a new promoter. And you always know if a new promoter comes along. And the reason I knew he was a new promoter because he offered to pay us. And so he booked us for a Friday night in Montgomery, Alabama, and Saturday night in Mobile. Friday night in Montgomery, the building would seat about 4,500 people, and we had 6.
Oh my goodness!
6 people. And I went to him and I said, "Sir, what do you want us to do?" He said, "Well, I booked you to sing. I'd like for you to sing." So we did, and I thought, well, tomorrow night will be better. Mobile, we've been there before. That building seated about 5,600, about like Bible Auditorium in Birmingham, and there was 8 people there.
Well, you're moving in the right direction.
We're gaining every night.
And again, I went to him and I said, what do you want us to? He said, "I want you to sing." He said, "Here's your check." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry that this didn't work out for you." And he said, "Well, this was a new venture to us." Said, "Only thing we've ever promoted is wrestling."
Wow.
I found out we would have been better if we'd have wrestled that night.
Yeah. If you'd have given him a pile driver or something, you may have had a couple of hundred there.
Haystack Hefner.
I told the guys, I said, you know, we're really not popular in Montgomery and Mobile. We might need to work north.
Yeah, the rest of the country, we're really hot.
Let me tell you one quick road story, and then we'll move on. And I tried to think of something that wasn't true, because what I'm going to tell don't seem like it's possible. But a preacher booked us for a Sunday morning service, and he gave us the address of the parsonage. He said, you'll get in late, but said, just go in the parsonage, make yourself at home. We had a guy named Charles Cruz that took care of all of that, and he was about 2 French fries short of a Happy Meal. I mean, he didn't take directions good. So we got in there about 11:30 and pulled up to this house. Have you heard this?
No, I like that Happy Meal.
and we went in this house, and boy, it was nice. Nobody home. It was nice. I mean, it had everything. Nothing, you know, I was from the country. I'd never even seen inside water. So, I mean, you know, this is really great. And they told us, said, there won't be anybody there. So said, just, you'll have the run of the house. Well, some of the guys got down to their underwear and their pajamas and whatever. And I know I was sitting in a recliner, eating some chips and drinking Cokes, and I saw the door open. This man and woman come in.
But it wasn't the pastor.
No, it wasn't the pastor. And I said, well, good evening. And one of the man said, I've got a question. He said, what are y'all doing here? I said, we're singing in the morning. He said, well, you're leaving tonight. But what was funny, before we got to all that, one of the other guys in the group said, well, we'd love to offer you guys something to eat, but we've eaten about everything in the refrigerator.
Oh, my goodness.
So that actually, you know, we were sitting there in their house. We had gone to the wrong, it wasn't a parsonage. And it was quite an altar service the next morning.
I would say that would strengthen your prayer life right there. Archie?
In probably the late 60s, we were traveling in a little white Greenbrier van. We were singing in a church in Lenore, North Carolina, and we were in a little motel. We'd get one room, and we was all boys. We'd get a rollaway bed, and we'd all stay in the same room, because that's all we could afford. Barely could afford that. And Troy and myself decided we'd run down to the church and set up the PA set. So we went down to the church and set up the PA set. And when we got back to the motel to pick everybody else up, we found out that we'd gone to the wrong church and set up the PA set. So we ran back down to the church, and there were some people there then, you know, and maybe a deacon or something. And they said, you're welcome to sing, you know, if you want to. And we said, we'd love to, but we're booked somewhere else. We've got to get over to the other church. We'd gone to the wrong church and set up the PA set.
Well, we did that. We thought we were going to sing, and they'd already put the food out. I mean, they were still having church, but we set up a sound system, records and everything. And we went back to the kitchen and saw the fellowship hall, so we just started eating.
Yeah. Are you the leader of that group? The manager?
I was.
You was?
Yeah.
And I call them blue-haired ladies. Kind of, you know what I mean? Their hair's blue, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
a couple of three of them came back and said, well, we're not serving lunch yet. No, we were eating. And, and we said, we need to go out here and do a sound check, so we'll come back and eat later. She said, well, what are you doing here? I said, we're singing for your homecoming. She said, that was last Sunday.
Oh. Well, we were booked in a church. I think we were in Alabama. And I'm
Has to be in Alabama.
I'm not sure. But we pulled up at this church that day, and they had one of these marquee signs out in front of it. Legacy 5 in concert, sold out. So I said, man alive, look here. So we pulled up there and went in. It was a average sized church, I guess, for the area. It was probably a 350 or 400 seat church. Pastor met us, and he was telling us, he said, man, we've had people calling all day wanting tickets, but I told them we're sold out. So they had a nice choir loft in there. I said, well, have you filled the choir loft? He said, no, we didn't want anybody sitting behind you. I said, well, yeah, man, let them sit up there. We don't want to turn anybody away. So we talked, there was a couple of people already there that were upset because they had driven a couple 100 miles to get there and couldn't get a ticket to get in. We said, we'll get you in. So, of course, that's when Roger was still alive, and he and Scott got together and said, you know what, we're going to have these people here. If we can't get them all in the building, let's just do a second program.
Yeah.
So we'll do two. So that's what we decided to do. We got in there, and boy, that place was full. We sang to them. So when it was done, Roger told me, he said, now, Howard, if you'll make sure everybody gets out of the building, because we got to get these other people in there to sit down. So as soon as we finished, they said goodbye, and I said, now, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, if you'll make your way to the door as you're visiting, because we've got people waiting to get in here and sit down. We had 8. We had 8. They come in there and sat down in that church, and we said, now what in the world are we going to do? And Roger said, well, we got to sing. So we got up and we sang. We gave them the full load, man, for all 8 of them. So that was our big date. I guess everybody has those.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we won't have another one.
By the way, you guys got opening. I'd like to try Mobile again.
Next up is singer, songwriter, comedian Aaron Wilburn and the multi-award-winning Connie Hopper.
It's great to be here with Connie Hopper, and one thing I said at the Quartet Convention about 4 or 5 years ago is I'd just like to see you throw a fit, because I've never seen you upset. And Claude said, "Trust me, it happens."
I was going to say you need to talk to Claude, maybe.
But I'm from Alabama, and you said one of your favorite stories is something that happened to you in Alabama.
Yes, they've been talking about Alabama, where we were scheduled to be in a church, and I think it was Gadsden. This has been years ago, and it was on a Sunday night, and it was packed. But the pastor had just put out word that anybody that wanted to come and sing could sing during the break. And so we did our first round, and I was sitting on the front row, and the pastor said, okay, who do we have that wants to come up and sing? Well, this big guy was coming down the aisle like this, and he got up to me and he says, Connie, I'm going to do It Is Well With My Soul in D. Will you play it for me? I said, Roger's right here. Roger Talley was playing the piano for us. And so Roger starts out the back door and he says, Roger, can you play this song for me? So then he gets up on the stage and he says, I tell you what, I'm going to sing a song and I'm going to sing all 4 parts. And he started it, often we sing. You remember that song? Often we sing to our great King. Oh. So he did all 4 parts, and he went through all this song, and Roger was playing for him. And finally, when he got finished, he was a pretty good singer. His name was Big John. That's what we called him. And we had met him first up in Alexandria, Virginia, back in the 60s. So he knew us, and we saw him in Alabama a lot. But when he got through, the crowd just started clapping. And the preacher, he went into the encore. And the preacher looked over at me and he says, do you know him? And I says, don't you know him? I said, everybody in gospel music knows him. So he finished his song. So then the pastor says, now who else is here tonight? So a little guy, I don't mean anything by this, but he was about your size. He got up there, he opened up
Well, I take that personal right there.
And he opened up a guitar case, and he put it on, and he said, I'm going to sing you a song I wrote myself.
That was me.
It's called The Cigarette Song. And he sang, listen, and I'll tell you a story. Anyway, Michael was sitting by me. Michael was little. And there was somebody else that came up and sang. But when it was over, Michael and I rushed to his car and bought that album that had the cigarette song, the baseball song, the telephone song. It had all these songs on it. And but it was a funny night. It was a really funny night. And we got up to do a particular song. That was when we first started doing This Is My Country, This Is My Flag. Mm-hmm. And Dean was playing drums. And I looked at Dean, and when somebody else gets tickled, then I get tickled. And I was on stage going, just like this. I think everybody thought I was in the spirit, but I was so tickled. Even Debbie Tallis and Connie Hopper, I don't believe that.
You just reminded me.
What?
I wasn't going to tell this story now because I was going to ask you a story about a story, which I will in a minute. But I was in Texas, and I'm not going to tell the name of the town or anything, but in a college auditorium. The auditorium slanted toward the stage, downward. I'm singing 4 Days Late, and a lady who is not skinny comes down the aisle with a camera. She's going to take a picture of me while I'm singing 4 Days Late. She's running down. Now, you got to understand that past the first 4 or 5 rows, nobody is going to see what happens because of the slant of the building. She's running down. She kneels in front of the stage, and she aims up at me, shoots the picture, starts to get up, and just falls over. And she just fell. And she can't get up. She's rolling in the floor with a camera, and I'm singing, "You may be fighting a battle of fear. You've got to." And people start shouting, "Woo! Woo!" And I had revival, and I felt so guilty for laughing. And those people think I was getting blessed, but I mean, I couldn't help it. Anyway,
I understand.
I hadn't even thought of that story till you told that. But now, this is a story I don't know anything about, but when I told my son Jim that today I was going to be here doing this, he said, if you get a chance to talk to Connie, ask her about the night a homeless man was a part of the Hopper's bus travels.
Well, I was sleeping in our bus, and I get up during the night from time to time, so I come to the front of the bus, and we're traveling. We're traveling, I think, 81 or somewhere, and I walk up there, and here's somebody on the bus I've never seen, and
Did he have a dog with him?
well, I'm getting to that.
Oh.
Anyway,
I'm sorry.
I don't want to use the word, but I mean, a hobo. I mean, back in the movies, you saw the hobo. Mm-hmm. Well, here's this man up in the stairwell of our bus, and he looks like a hobo. He's kind of rugged looking, and
You're being nice.
and I just sat there and I looked and I thought, what is going on here? And we had a young boy that was driving the bus, and he had met him at a truck stop, and they had got to talking. And so the man said, do you all have a restroom on this bus? And Matt said, yeah, we do. And so when the man gets up to come by me, here comes this great, big, humongous dog that's up on the bus. And so I thought, I don't know this man. I don't know his dog. I don't know any of this. And so I go wake up Claude Hopper. And the boy and the dog, they travel on to the next, wherever we stopped. And I think Dean took them in, and Claude took them in and bought them some breakfast. And that was the end of the hobo and the dog on the bus.
Wow. Did your driver get fired?
I think he just got reprimanded real good. He never picked up another hobo nor a dog.
In case that wasn't picked up here in the studio, Porter Wagoner was sitting off to the side and just asked if the driver got fired.
We all know Gordon Mote as an incredible piano player, keyboardist, and vocalist. Also, Gordon spent many years on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry playing piano for Porter Wagoner. Well, we asked Gordon if he wouldn't mind asking Porter to stop by and visit with us for a while. Maybe talk to some of our friends.
Folks, it's wonderful to have with me as my guest Ted Lovelace.
Porter, it's Tim Lovelace.
I've never heard of you.
Well, that's okay.
It's great to have you on my program. And outstanding. Now, they tell me that you're supposed to be funny.
Well, My mom said if ignorance is bliss, she said I was blistered.
All right, great. Now then, brought to you by Martha White, and there was great flour, and I'm sure your mother used to probably bake things with it and so forth. And you talk about your mother, and now what does she do?
She's an ammunition salesman.
All right, outstanding. And you're supposed to be funny. When does that part of the program start? Now then, have you played? It seemed like to me you were on the Grand Ole Opry a couple of times.
Yeah, I have been.
And you weren't funny then either.
No.
So, but they tell me that you're wonderful. Les Beasley speaks very highly of you.
I've never heard of him.
I need to call him back. Maybe he was talking about someone else. Well, you're wonderful. It's been great talking with you on my program. And folks, you need to check him out. He reads all his own fan mail, makes his own clothes. Tim Lovelace. Thank you, buddy. You're wonderful. Thank you so much. Folks, I'm sitting here with one of the great men in gospel music, Stacy Stubblefield, and
I've been called worse. It's okay.
I've got to get my glasses. Is it Stacy or Tracy?
Tracy.
Yeah. It's great to see you, Stacy.
Good to see you.
And wonderful. You're fantastic. And you're in a group called the Perrys.
Yes.
And you travel all over the world, sang in most states.
Right.
And that's great. That's wonderful. Now, you, how many of you in the group last name of Perry?
Just one.
And who's that?
It's my wife. She's an original member.
I see. She was too embarrassed to take your name?
That's it. You're right.
Don't blame her. So y'all have had a lot of big hits. You had a song called "Wish Could Have Got There," and
it's really "Wish I Could Have Been There."
Me too, but I couldn't get there. That's great. That's wonderful. And you've had a lot of big other hits too. No, I can't think of any of them.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate.
You sure have. That's great. You're just fortunate to be in the business. What I heard.
Yes, you're right.
And,
you're right about it.
Fantastic. Well, have you ever played the Grand Ole Opry?
Never have. It's one of my dreams to be on the Grand Ole Opry stage.
Let's just keep dreaming, I guess. That's great. Well, it's been great to be with you and your sweet wife over there. She's fantastic.
It's an honor to be with you.
Well, you bet it is. And you're wonderful. And I'd look forward to hearing you on the radio. Do they ever play any of your songs on the radio?
Every now and then.
That's great. They love you, man. Great job. All right, now then, this is a great honor for me. This is the Cracker Barrel part of my program, to interview this great lady, one of the great ladies of our gospel music business. And Connie Hopper, you're just outstanding. Wonderful to have you on my program.
Thank you, Porter.
You're wonderful. And of the great Hopper singers in Connie. Claude is the husband of this beautiful lady, and I still haven't figured that one out. You must feel sorry for ugly people. You know, I always said if I wouldn't be the ugliest man alive as long as Claude Hopper and Keith Bilbrey were alive. I'd never be the ugliest man alive. But I love you, and you're wonderful. And let me ask you one thing about Claude. He's got this name, Claude Hopper, which is fantastic in itself. But he's got this candy that he sells that you sing in concerts. And does he not believe his voice can sell? Well, I don't guess he does. He's got to sell chocolate. Because tell me about where the candy comes from. Do you make it yourself?
Actually, no.
You don't?
I don't make it.
You don't?
People used to send us this candy into the office all the time because it had clodhoppers on it. It's clodhoppers.
Right.
That's the name of the candy. And so we just would throw it over in a box. We didn't know what it was. And then one day we began eating it. It was so good. And he just said, well, I'm going to call this company and tell them that they're infringing on my name. and I want to get into the business of candy because they're using my name to sell this candy.
He's a capitalist. Capitalizes on everything.
If it's possible, yeah.
I bet it's tough playing Monopoly with him. Unbelievable. And you've got great kids, too. They're wonderful.
Thank you.
And Tim is a great singer.
Yes.
And I just don't understand. Claude, he needs to be put in prison for he's selling candy and just taking advantage of his family, hiding behind all this talent and making a killing. Well, you're wonderful. Thank you for being on my program, and God bless you trying to take care of Claude. You're a good sport.
I feel like I ought to defend him somewhere.
No.
What do you get when you take two of the best musicians in Southern gospel music and add Willie Nelson? Well, let's just check it out.
All right, boys. Well, we've had all kind of stories and comical things, but I told the guys earlier there's no way that we can get this many singers and players together without having some music. So we got two of the finest guitar players in the whole world of gospel music right here. Can y'all just do us a little? It doesn't have to be a long something, just a short. Just the two of y'all play you a little something.
Well, Aaron, it's a little intimidating knowing that Gordon is here and he has such a great ear.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And also, I was just reading the other day where Roger Fortner, like the 10 things you don't know about him or whatever in singing news. I actually read that because I love Roger's playing. And his biggest thing was he don't ever want to be on the stage out of tune. So that's why it's...
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we'll kind of
Well,
dedicate
you tuned
this.
up?
Yeah, I tuned twice. And so this is kind of for Gordon and for Roger. Okay.
All right.
You ready? Here we go. Let's do it serious.
Man, I love a good ending.
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Gordon, do you think maybe you can get me some gigs?
I doubt it.
Wow.
Maybe you could play the Alabama School for the Deaf.
Yeah, y'all did look good doing it.
Well, you know, since we've been doing stories on the road, probably one of the greatest songs, it's not really a gospel song, but is On the Road Again. And it kind of fits into everything, which ties me in, gets me to thinking about Willie. Willie's been out there a long time and got a unique voice. And so we asked Willie if he would come here today, and they told us how much it would be. So we called Legacy 5 and said, could we get a discount? And so why don't we do a little bit of an uncloudy day, and we haven't practiced this, and so this is uncalled for and unrehearsed at the same time.
As Willie.
All right. Okay, here we go, Scott.
You gonna give an intro?
As Willie. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm Willie Weddy.
Kick it off, Wichita. Ready and Willie.
Here we go. Oh, they tell me of a home far beyond the sky.
That's good.
Oh, they tell me of a home far away. They tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. In that land of unclouded days.
Oh,
Come on, boys. Oh, the land of cloudless days. Oh, the land of unclouded sky. Oh, they tell me of a home where no storm clouds rise. Oh, they tell me of an unclouded day. As Willie. That's good. That's all Willie knows.
The problem with that is he came in on baritone. I'm thinking I'm not Willie Wynn. I cannot sing tenor. Yeah.
Well, I hit one line of baritone, and then I couldn't remember where to go from
Hey,
there.
buddy, that's
My socks went
that's
up down
authentic.
12 times, but you sounded
That's
good.
right.
That's really good.
Worsted wool. I was going to stand up, but this chair somehow just stuck to me when I.
Well, it's been fun, but it's not over. Check out DVD number 2